shortly, but we can at least get the agenda off. So I'm going to go ahead and call to this regular meeting of the Regional School District Number 8 Board of Education to order. Start with our roll call, starting here. Kevin Williams from Hebron.
And Leanne Owen.
Carol Shane, Marlboro.
Joe Connor Hebron.
Shannon Mosley, student representative.
Judy Benson, Clerk, Marlboro.
Rich Jacobson Hebron.
Austin, Superintendent of Schools.
Jane Neal, businessman. Kathy Mund, administrative assistant.
Okay, if we could rise to the pledge. Flag is at the back of the room. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, that'll bring us to item 3 on the agenda, which is public comments. So we'll offer the opportunity for you to share any information that you want to provide to the board, and just introduce yourself, name and town only is fine. Jeff.
Hi, my name is Jeff Watt. I'm from Hebron. I'm the chair of the Board of Selectmen in Hebron. I wanted to just bring up 2 items. One of them is that I have been contacted by a citizen about the fact that on an item that you have for executive session tonight, which is the renewal of the superintendent's contract, that they had been approached by a board member that there already had been a decision made, and what that decision was. And I just want to point out, as you know, is that when you get into executive sessions and you have those items, it's important that they stay in executive sessions and that there's not any open forum to that until you guys make it all public. But I would kind of hope tonight, as you get into executive sessions, that maybe you kind of review those kind of rules with the board, and so it's not a matter of some of us kind of reminding them that a decision really hasn't been made by your board itself. So that was one item. The second one was, on our agenda coming up this Thursday, we have the Regional 8 Medical and Health Consortium Compact, which is on our agenda to approve. And I'm feeling a little concerned for our board, is that there was a lot of work put into this, and in the latest vote, the only one that did support it was, and abstain from it, was the Dr. Saminsky from Region 8. So as an 8-member board, I think what's important is that we have a complete, everybody's on the same page as we go forward with it. And I understand why he didn't do it. I know that part of it is that the board wants to actually approve it first, and also that I think that there's still some question about that the RHAM board itself should have more than one vote, which I probably still do not agree with that. But my hope would be is that I'm going to actually ask that we postpone it from our board until this board makes a decision, since that's the direction that we've got from Dr. Saminsky, is that the reason he abstained, because I would like to see that 8-member consortium all be in agreement before it comes to our board at that time. So I just wanted to bring that up to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move to item 4. Any additions to the agenda? Does anybody have any additional items that they're looking for us to cover tonight? Seeing none, we'll move to item 5, report of the administration. Bob.
Okay, the first thing we'd like to do is establish a date that Shannon is very interested in. And what we're proposing to the board is that June 18th be established as his graduation day. We can do this now because we passed April 1st. We have no snow days, well, it's at the peril of the state, so we can now set graduation date, and invitations can go up and people can start making plans definitely. So we request that. Okay. Number 5.2, we've got 2 items in the packet about information on the budget. We're continuing to review the necessary corrections that we get an idea of what we're going to be handing out places in the town halls so that people can get an idea of the budget. And I would have this corollary that if anybody wants me to go out and address questions about the budget, I'd be happy to. Just invite me. I'll even bring my own coffee. So, that's available. 5.4, we've had to make some modifications to the teacher evaluation rubric. We've sent that to you. You can see by the size of the document that it's a rather lengthy document. And it's a tome, really. But we need to submit that to the state. I think that there are just a couple major changes that we've made in the document. And the first one is the number of domains where people will be evaluated. Under the Common Core Teaching Standards, there were 6 domains. Under the Connecticut Rubric for Effective Teaching, there are 4. What we've done is we've adopted the state's rubric so that we felt that after reviewing it with the Professional Development Committee, it was effective, and since the state put it forward, it was something that we supported and could make part of our evaluation plan. The second thing we did is that we revised the section on intensive assistance. The way the plan was originally written, someone could go and need intensive assistance, but it would take us a year to get to that point. So what we've done is we revised that so that, excuse me, the intensive assistance can begin after 6 months. So that we just want to accelerate that process so we can address any issues that might be present in an individual's classroom. Next, I'd just like to address a change in the school calendar. As it was prepared, it didn't reflect the contract. What we've done, what the contract did is it eliminated the extended days. And so what we've done is we've modified the calendar to do that. The only change in the calendar is to add another professional development day. And the professional development day would be added on on the Wednesday after the February vacation. So students would have a 3-day week, a 2-day school week during that week. So that we need to do that to be sure we're in compliance with the number of school days, and we've addressed the issue of the calendar with professional development.
Okay, yeah, Rich.
Concerning the documents that are going to be handed out to the town hall, last year we gave out the public forum, I think, a blue sheet that had an outline of the budget. We're doing an equivalent.
Budget summary, is that what you're talking?
Yeah, we'll be putting out a budget summary, and what we did is we added something new this year. You can see the questions on the budget if I can get them. So we're just trying to get as much information out as we can, so that we're just trying to.
Correct. Start that.
And then you'll get a budget summary out. And again, if anybody wants anybody to address any group regarding the budget, just please call.
Okay. All right. That's it, Bob?
That's it.
Okay, brings us to item 6, presentations. Are there any presentations?
No presentations this evening.
Okay. Brings us to item 7, reports of committees. We'll start with communications technology, which did not meet last month. Will be meeting tomorrow night. The main focus of the conversation on the communication side is on budget communications, and on the technology side is on the overall technology plan for the district. So certainly any public, including any of the board members that want to attend as members of the public, are welcome to be present tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock in the superintendent's conference room. Facility safety transportation.
We didn't have a meeting, I think last month. Had several scheduled. One of them was canceled because of the budget meeting. And a couple of things, I guess, that are, I don't know if we can talk about it now, but I would like to know where we stand with the windows, if that's permissible here to ask Dr. Saminsky.
I would prefer to address that in executive session.
Okay. Rich, do you have anything? Carol?
Not right now.
Okay. Policy did meet this past month. The specifics we'll cover in section 8 of the agenda, but there were a few points of feedback that we received after first reading a couple of months ago. Those were accepted and incorporated into the revised version of policies that are presented for second reading tonight. And we'll go through those specifically as part of items 8.4 and 8.5 of the RHAM program.
We met and, where was it? We basically went over this teacher evaluation, and all the changes associated with that. We got an update on the guidance self-survey. That's still in progress. We're expecting it to be done sometime after June. A lot of it's been slowed down due to some of the staffing changes that have occurred in the guidance. So we're still looking forward to that. Brief discussion on one-to-one computers and what it would be if you had to bring your own device type thing. STEM program is really active. We have 27 8th graders this year and 70 7th graders. And we discussed where those will progress into high school, into what path they had, mostly around science, where they would be doing honors, honors 9th grade math, then go into AB biology, AB chemistry, AB physics, AP physics. And then we look at the school calendar. So.
Thanks, Rich. Negotiations, I don't think met last one, right?
No, we're working on some dates for
For non-certs.
We have a meeting on the 12th.
I believe it's the 12th.
The 12th
Okay.
of May.
Okay, great, thanks. Athletics extracurriculars, I don't think met, right?
We didn't meet, but if I could just go back while we're on athletics, so we talk
Oh, yeah.
about facilities a little bit more, but I did have a conversation with Rich Clarko last week just to bring the board up to speed. They are working on the fields. There has been some tremendous progress that can be made. I think they've aerated, core-rated, top-dressed. I spoke to Rich again today. They had a meeting tonight that I was supposed to go to. Unfortunately, due to this meeting, I couldn't attend it, but to get an update, basically, the town engineers will be submitting a proposal, I think, to Dr. Sminsky on their findings on the west side of the field, which has been the wettest field. So there has been some discovery on that, and so I think on that side of the house, things are moving fairly quickly and well. Only if the weather would cooperate, we'd be in much better shape.
It's your watering.
Yeah, exactly. As far as athletics, kind of like you said, we haven't met, but I did have one other thing about, I don't know if this is bring it up, but we all got an email about RHAM lacrosse not having home games, so I don't know if there's any.
I haven't had a chance to discuss that with Mr. Logan just because of on schedules today, but I will be discussing everything.
Do we have any estimate for when that field will be available for lacrosse?
No, that was we can find out. I know that in the game will be scheduled, the games away because of the wet conditions of the field, and that I don't know how the balance of the schedule is, so I haven't had a chance to meet with them to discuss it.
That's it.
Okay. Finance, audit, compliance, and insurance did not meet last month, but I suspect we'll be meeting this month on a couple of items, including the aforementioned insurance consortium. So more on that at our next meeting. So that brings us to student reports. Ms. Mulquin.
Yeah, students are gearing up for some important spring activities. AP testing is coming up in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, so everyone is getting stressed setting for those, and proms are also coming up, so people are starting to meet to plan them more. Something that I'm sure you guys are all aware of that I just wanted to acknowledge was the incredible support from basically the whole RHAM community around Mr. Fagan, who's the psychology teacher who's struggling with brain cancer. And we had an amazing fundraiser that had incredible support that a lot of people came to that helped to support the Fagan family. And so there's been a lot of positivity going around about this kind of not so good situation. So I just thought that was a cool thing that's going around in the RAM environment that you guys should be aware of as well if you weren't already aware. And then finally, there was a report on RAM News today about the Wi-Fi, which was actually something that I was going to bring up anyway here. And we've been having like poor connectivity problems with like cell phones and also sometimes with laptops connecting. And so they did like an investigation, and the tech department is working to fix it. So I will keep you updated on that. So we'll see if anything improves. But if it doesn't, I'll come again asking for you guys' help to remove that.
The people who are in from Aruba, the people controlling the wireless points, they updated the software over vacation, so we're looking to see what that is, what impact that has. So we hope to see some changes and some improvements in it.
So I know that's a big source of angst for a lot of the cell phone carrier students. So.
How long is this? Is this a recent problem, or has it been a constant problem?
It's been pretty much always there, but we never really thought to acknowledge it until that investigation showed the numbers were actually quite lower than how they were supposed to be. That's when kind of people started realizing, hey, this could be something that we could try to fix. So we'll see.
But our room works fine.
I had heard from my student that, about the RAM News report, and it was reflected that there was a noted or markable difference between the internal secure network that the teachers and staff use and the broader guest network that the students and other visitors to the building would use. That there was a significant difference in bandwidth speed. All right, and I also would add too, in addition to that fundraiser that was at the Hebron Alliance Fairgrounds, it was, I know I heard, incredibly successful. Based on student recommendations, the music department agreed to take half of any proceeds associated with concession sales and everything else from the spring concert that was held that Wednesday after, and add them on to the fundraiser bracket as well. So they wanted to make sure that they were contributing in any way that they could. So it really has been a strong show of community support for a really respected faculty member.
And then Sharon. Oh, but we're here as an education institution, and we obviously work hard and show that to students, and it has, I think, some phenomenal news that just is inspiring to me. So I think.
I recently heard from the college that I got into that I got into a 3-3 program with the law school, so it's very exciting. Yeah.
She's already accepted into law school, really, which is just testament, I think, to the hard work. It really is.
Absolutely, you're being modest, but it's a terrific accomplishment.
It's amazing.
Thanks.
And to echo the sentiments of the faculty member we were talking to earlier, just make sure that you finish off the year strong. Okay, brings us up to facilitators. I think, as far as I know, we still do not have somebody assigned for Educational Foundation.
I do not think so.
You'd asked for volunteers, and I think we have one. I know that spelling bee is coming up, right, Bob?
Yes, the curriculum.
It's a major fundraiser for them. Other than that, I haven't heard anything specific on the foundation.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
Is the Educational Foundation the same as it is at Hebron Elementary? That it's a 401c?
501c3.
501, sorry.
501c3.
Is it, do we have that set up?
Yes, it
It's
is.
a separate,
It's a separate organization. It's not part of the school because it can't be. But it is.
Tax exempt number.
It does have, so it's already set up is my
Yes,
question. I
yes.
guess it's already set up.
And-
Oh,
and
okay.
that's a considerable fundraising too.
We're gonna have an auction, I know, I'll put in a plug for them, we're gonna have a couple of Red Sox tickets, so that if anybody wants to donate anything to the auction, we will be happy to accept it, and, put it out there for the side of auction, but we're hoping that the Red Sox tickets will gain some, money.
When is this?
The 30th.
Spelling bee.
30th day.
Spelling bee, that's the event, it's not like, okay.
their meetings. Well, we normally have a liaison from the board who meets with them, so, I'm trying to think of Laura.
Peter was.
Peter was for quite a while, so. If anyone's interested, if not, I may do it, so we're just looking at.
Okay. Judy, anything from EastCon?
Yeah, EastCon just hosted a speaker who flew in from Australia, and he wrote a book that I just opened on here called World Class Learners, and he's very interesting. He's from China, and you can follow him on Twitter. His spelling of his name is Yong, then Zhao, and the World Class Learners, it's educating creative and entrepreneurial students. So he had a different take than many in education right now about what needs to be done and what has made America successful. And he went back and showed standardized testing and test scores of United States students back to the 1960s. And his point was that the United States didn't look that great against the rest of the world in the 1960s. So this isn't just a new thing. And he talked about how to inspire creativity and an entrepreneurial spirit in students and what needed to occur. So this gentleman is all over. As I said, he presents globally, and he grew up in China, and he said that he didn't have a lot of great farming skills, and luckily his parents supported that he, even though they didn't read, that he was more academically inclined. So it was just a great, I think, very healthy presentation that they brought in to go along with the work they're doing on personalized learning. So I'd highly encourage following them on Twitter.
And I think tying that back into RHAM
Mhm.
with the educational, creative, entrepreneurial students,
Mhm.
I think that we're doing a really awesome job with that. The students just recently went to France and explored culturally
Mhm.
there, and there's a Spanish exchange going on right now, and also I know of a DECA trip to some place or other, and with the DECA team is so highly regarded, so we're doing really great on that front
Mhm.
if we're going to be
Yeah.
looking at that kind of stuff.
And that's actually definitely one of the prongs, or one of the things he would really encourage, is for those kinds of
Hands-on.
hands-on communications, exchanges, information, share. So absolutely.
Thanks.
Mhm.
CAVE just came off of their Day at the Hill at the end of March, where they invited CAVE members to attend and meet with legislators. While I wasn't there, I will say that basically the report back is not a surprise, that there was a lot of conversation among representation from boards of education to the state about concerns about the budget status and what's happening with funding at the state level, along with unfunded mandates. And quite frankly, the feedback from the state level is pretty much the same as we would expect it to be. Budget's in flux, still not decided. We'll look into it. Whether we see any significant change or not, we'll have to keep our eyes open, but we won't know much more until June, until they get their act together. So, with that, we're up to the chair's report, so I think I'm going to turn it back over to Danny.
Thank you, Kevin. Sorry for my lateness. For the chair's report, one item which we just discussed was the spelling bee, so if anyone is going to participate now, I would strongly encourage it, just let me know. The second item, I guess the second item, some of the things that it's been a quiet week last week, but some of those items that need to be discussed will come up in the executive session later today. So other than that, that's all I have. That brings us to action items 8.1. I need a minute for the approval of the minutes from the March 16th, 2015 regular meeting, March 23rd, 2015 special meeting, March 30th, 2015 special meeting, and closure 8.1C. Is that, okay, I'm sorry, April 6, 2015 public hearing, and the April 6, 2015 special meeting, and the April 8, 2015 special meeting. Is there a motion? Motion by Rich? Yeah. Thanks, Rich. Is there a second?
Thanks.
Second by Joe? Any discussion? Yes.
On the minutes of the last school board meeting, when we voted on the tennis court, page 1, I'm listed as Carol Lee instead of Carol Shea.
Oh.
That's
I'll fix it.
one correction. The rest of the time, you spelled it right.
Ken's wife.
Yeah. Okay, subject to that correction, are there any other comments?
I just, that was on a notice, I was talking to Kathy. Kathy, yes, the handout here says Carol Shays from Hebron.
Okay.
Oh, under the,
Yeah, I just-
brochure.
That was it all.
Use round white.
Yeah, I would say that. I'll fix it.
Okay, any further discussion on the minutes? If not, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as Any opposed? Any abstentions? No abstentions. Two abstentions. Can you abstain? Okay, 2 abstentions, Ken and Kevin. Brings us on to item 8.3. A motion to receive and file the following documents, the levy payment schedule.
Hang on, Mr. Chair. Just a point where 8.2, we have to cover personnel action.
Oh, sorry, I'm right in the minutes. Okay. 8.2, personnel actions, retraction of retirement date and abate closure 8.2 and resignation 8.2B. So we open up the items. The first one is we need a motion that the Regional School District Number 8 Board of Education accept the delay of Mr. Schmidt's retirement until June 30th, 2016, and approve the granting of benefits pursuant to Article 36 of the professional agreement between the Board of Education and the RHAM Education Association in July 2016, 17, and 18. Motion made by Mike, second by Kevin. This is the item that we kind of carried over the last 2 meetings until we had it perfected, right? So this motion is made here, is this the correct action?
That's the correct action.
Because we rescinded it last time, or we didn't?
So we did it this time, and then we accepted it.
Okay.
And that helps us to a degree because he's a science teacher, and science teachers are difficult to retain.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, call the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. That brings us to item 8.2B. Need a motion that the Regional School District Number 8 Board of Education accept the resignation of Pamela Otemri, effective April 2nd, 2015.
So moved.
Motion made by Kevin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Second by Mike. Any discussion?
Will there be discussion in executive session on this?
This item on executive session?
No. It's just a straight resignation. I'd be happy, to get the questions aside on it.
Okay, it's a personnel matter, right?
It's a resignation, so it's not a
Obviously,
discussion.
you're not the special ed director, correct?
Yes.
She's special ed director.
Mhm.
I asked some questions on why, but I don't know if this is the proper form of it, that's why.
Yes, I agree with you, no, and thank you for taking into consideration. I mean, Bob was, what will be the best course for if Joe has any questions, just direct them to
Sidebar?
you.
Okay.
Is there any action to try to hire another?
We've been advertising since April 3rd.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the resignation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Concludes item 8.2. That brings us to item 8.3. I need a motion to receive and file the following reports: the levy payment schedule 8.3A, cash flow report 8.3B, monthly financial reports 8.3C, student activity report enclosure 8.3D, student discipline enclosure 8.3E, special education report 8.3F, sick day report enclosure 8.3G, curriculum instruction assessment and instructional technology report 8.3H, and cafeteria report 8.3I.
So moved.
Motion made by Kevin, is there a second? Second by Mike. Discussion. Any discussion?
I'm going to say the same reason why I'm not approving it. is that we have a budget that shows a lot of deficits. And we haven't done the transfers like we were supposed to be doing.
But what we're going to be doing is in accordance with the policy. Jane will be preparing a detailed report in May, and then during the May meeting, we anticipate some budget transfers. The categories that were outlined in the policy that the report that she presented in April.
Any further discussion on the reports? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. Okay, 8.4, Kevin, you can take it.
Sure. So there are a slew of first reading policies for your review in the coming days. Most of them are just on a regular update schedule, so have been checked against statutes to make sure they're still compliant, make sure the language still makes sense. There are some, though, that I would call your attention to that involve some revisions, specifically the School Safety Plan Policy 1450.
Flash rank.
Yep. Graduation requirements is a revision to review. And then class rank for adoption. Request for information, board member electronic meeting participation, both for regular board meetings as well as for subcommittee meetings. Presentation by board members and request for information. So if you're going to pay any particular attention, I'd look at those because those indicate the most either new information or changes.
Do you want comments by email?
That's fine. Email, call me, or come to the next policy subcommittee meeting, which will be coming up in May, 2nd of May.
I kind of know how we got to 9415 presentation by board members, but I mean, if we all get up and start making presentations for 5 minutes or something, we could be here a long time.
Yep. I don't disagree. That's why it's out for first reading, so that we can, discuss it further if there's a need to refine it, if there's a desire to, to do something with it when it comes up for second reading. It certainly could be voted up or down based on the board's.
Yeah, I'd have to be convinced to vote for it.
Okay.
I also have the problem where a subcommittee member may be taking a legitimate presentation for that committee. And this doesn't quite allow it as a representative of the subcommittee.
Okay.
Send your comments to Kevin or come to the meeting.
I do have a couple questions. One, the graduation requirements.
Yep.
Can you just say the number
6146.
6146.
There was supposed to be some, I understand we gotta get this done as soon as possible. But we neglected to put that extra verbiage that Scott needed to give him some more flexibility on some of the requirements. And so I was
Relative to.
being able to waive some like the technology elective due to some scheduling conflicts.
Like an online class.
Like an online class, but he needed some flexibility. We wanted to get that in there.
Yeah, the way I see it, Rich, the way this thing has evolved, we made a quick change to it to remove the cap requirement when caps went away. There is an adjustment being made now because SBAC is in place. Those other changes, it doesn't preclude us from making a further revision to add those other changes. So I think it's just a matter of urgency of specific things that that are known already versus what we have to do to accommodate those other things. And policy would certainly look to program for those recommendations. If the program says, look, this is what we ought to do, policy's not going to trump that.
Okay, we can bring that back up.
So
That
just
language is,
for organizational reasons and keeping it on track, is it possible, and just Scott's not here, then can we get him to provide that language to us, or do we have that language already?
I will
I remember what Rich was talking about.
I think that there's been so many iterations that I think it's gotten confused and lost in some of the iterations, so we will be, I'll meet with Scott on that.
The bottom maybe needs to be looked at. The language, all students must be satisfactorily assessed by a statewide mastery.
That's right from the statute.
Is it? Really?
That's straight from the Connecticut State statute.
Satisfactory, the grades that you have.
On
And just that, if I might add parenthetically, if you've been reading about the modifications to the DC Act.
Yeah.
The whole testing thing is up in the air again. So
Right.
we just needed to be sure that we had something in place to cover us for this year.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's important too, this is, again, directly in alignment with the way that the state statute is written. The other component of the state statute remains in there, which is that the district always has an alternative option available for students. So in our case, it's the portfolio review today, but that there is an alternative to that path if it's needed for a particular student.
On 6190, we're removing the determination of class rank from the weighted grading. That should stay, because even though we don't normally pass it out, we still calculate it for those colleges that require it.
Correct. It's still calculated, it's just not published.
Right, so we need to keep it in that policy as the weighted grading and keep the change that you did in the other one and remove it.
Any other comments?
Just a general discussion on this question of information by board members. I don't think we want to be in a point where any board member that asks Bob for something that he has to deliver it. And this policy is sort of written that way.
Say that again?
It basically says request for individual board members will be addressed as follows. And it doesn't give him a way out if a board member requests something that is unreasonable.
When you say, which number is it? Is it 61?
There's two of them, 9180 and 9420. They look duplicates. I'm not sure why they're accurate. At a certain point, it needs to require a vote from the board if we want him to go out of his way to do something that you couldn't get through, the freedom of information as your baseline.
And I think that was the committee's intent.
That was the
to
intent.
follow the FOI
Follow.
guidelines in order to allow the superintendent the opportunity to manage the number of requests that he gets in and the expectations of when he can reply. Obviously, if something is easier and simpler, he can get back quicker, but I think there was in fairness to allow some sort of element in there for the superintendent to be able to manage requests, because they can come in fast and furious and with follow-ups and everything else. And when the expectations for a response are high and there's other things going on, it's difficult for them to respond. So,
But we do want to give him the ability to say no to the individual and force it up to the board level.
All right. So we'll take that to the next committee.
I've got it.
Brings us to 8.5, second reading.
Okay, so for 8.5, I'd like to make a motion to approve the following second reading policies as presented in your packet this month. Policy 1335, automatic defibrillators. Policy 1410, community use of school facilities. 1412, schedule of fees. 1413, use of school equipment or property. 1422, student contests. 1423, soliciting funds from students. 1424, fundraising. 1430, restricting recreational use of school grounds by motorized recreational vehicles. 1450, School Safety Plan 5144, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. 5545, use of private technology devices by students. 9341, Board of Education minutes, and 9420, board notifications.
Motion made by Kevin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Joe.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Sure. 5144? I saw them listed as contacts for Eric Protulis and Joanne Craig Doyle.
That should have been revised.
That's what those were taken out, that's a specific piece that was removed.
Correct. You should see that it's deleted. It's just left out as the title only, the name is removed.
Underline for delete.
Yeah, if it's underlined, it needs to go away. So
Any other questions?
Yes. I'm sorry, Chris. AEDs. I'm concerned, first of all, I guess I asked the question, how many AEDs do we have on this site?
3, there's one right outside the door here, there's one in the middle school, and there's a total of one by the athletic teams.
So the one I seen is in the hallway where your office is?
Yes,
Okay,
right by the
so,
gymnasium.
right. So I think that's insufficient, highly insufficient.
As far as the number of devices available?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'd like to see, I guess I'm okay with the policy, obviously, because it's just, I'm just bringing this up as a discussion. That I think that, talking with middle school athletic director, as well as just looking, because I go around and look at those things, and I've only seen the 2 that Bob mentioned. I really don't think that there is enough in the school, and I do believe that if there was ever an incident outside of the middle school field, that's not going to be that's not going to be enough time to save somebody. So I would like to see us invest in more of those. Being a first responder myself, I know you are as well. I think time is critical. And I don't think they're properly marked as well. And if I had to send someone to go find an AED in this building, you would be hard pressed to find it. So I think that needs to be looked at. I know the people in the building who work here on a daily basis obviously know where they are, but if somebody dropped in here and I told someone to go get an AED, I don't think they could properly find it, and or if somebody's in the audience. So I think we need to do a better job on. I know there's deals out there, but we should definitely be having more.
Does that impact the policy the way it's written?
No, that's what I said.
Okay.
It doesn't impact the policy. I think the policy just says it's about AEDs, but I wanted to bring that up, that I think as a board, we should be very cognizant of the fact that we don't have enough.
I know that in some different occupancies, OSHA has some mandates as to how many AEDs need to be around and how close and in between buildings and so forth. So there may be some guidance somewhere. Bob, historically, I know it's outside of the policy discussion, but since Joe brought it up, normally your vendor who sells these, it pretty much has what the recommended standard is as to how they should be used. Sometimes they fill them in with tables so that you have portables that are accessible, like either a school nurse or others in addition to whatever's marked, but that might be a good resource. Any other discussion on the policy? Thank you.
I have a question on 5545, we're adding the word possession for the obscene contents. How is this going to work if we do more of bring your own, or a student might bring in a parent's laptop, or does this cause potential problems?
I want to make sure I understand your concern correctly. So your concern is if we're encouraging bring your own device use and a student brings in a device that's not necessarily their primary device, might be a family member, they're just bringing it in for the purpose of doing schoolwork or whatever, and that device happens to have on it objectionable material. I understand the concern. I think there's an important lesson that has to come through that, though, that each individual needs to be responsible for the contents of any device we have, just as if you're in the airport, TSA requires you to be responsible for your bag. And if you say, well, I borrowed my dad's bag and I didn't realize that he had stuffed a
44 in it.
Yeah, I didn't realize they'd stuff a weapon in the bottom of the thing. You're still going to be held responsible for the thing that you brought into the environment. So,
Where the PC is different from that. You're not going to know what's on it.
I'd be concerned, even for students, I'd be concerned if they're bringing a device and they don't know what's on the device. I think it's far more likely to be the other way around. I think it's more likely to be a student device and the parent doesn't know what the content is.
Any further discussion on that? Okay. All those in favor?
Can I have one more question? Sorry. I know this was an email that, did you have a response to Lynn Cohen's email about fundraising, advertising? Because I don't think we have a policy on advertising yet, do we?
Advertising as far as?
For like on scoreboards and stuff like that. But we had some talk.
I forwarded to Bob right before the holidays, and I wrote Vinnie back and told him when Bob gets back, I would get back to him his opinion as to what the rules are for that. So
But we don't have a policy on, or do we?
I think there's a policy on sponsoring. I think
Sponsoring?
they're sponsoring certain things, but I don't know if it specifically needs advertising, but there was a sponsor, there's a policy here on sponsoring. What is it?
I know there's definitely one for naming of facilities.
Naming a facility, but it's related to that. There's
Yeah,
another
I think there is
policy.
one connected, but I have to dig
And
it
that's
up.
what the draft of what that is revised and send that policy.
Okay. We can definitely follow up on that for you, Joe.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, no more further discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention, Carol? Carol abstained. Motion passes. That brings us to item 8.6, discussion and possible action regarding financial monthly, quarterly, and transfer reports, as well as approval. Rich, this was your recommendation for the agenda, so I'll let you go ahead and introduce the topic and concerns or items of interest.
Okay, well, we've been having this conversation for about a year and a half now. Looking at our policy, and the state statute requires a certain level of monitoring. It's our job to monitor these budgets. It is our job, according to the policy and according to the state statute, that we do transfers. And I want to see us get a report structure in place where we are actually given the information that we need to monitor the budget and do the transfers that we are obligated to do by law.
I'll just comment that the Finance Committee reviewed the reports, the need of reports and the content for reports, and it was reported at the last meeting that satisfactory budget status report would include the object report, the monthly program report, and then quarterly, Jane was going to provide a budget status report, which would include, if needed, any budget transfers between the 8 line items in accordance with the policy. So that was the recommendation of the Finance, Audit, and Insurance Committee at the last meeting, and I would recommend that we continue with that.
I challenge the 8 line items, so really don't provide us anything to monitor the budget with.
Well, so here's the thing, Rich, and give this example. One of those 8 categories is salaries. I don't know that we as a board want to get into a conversation and say we need to transfer $30,000 from the science department salary account to the English department salary account because of a change in personnel. They should have, the administration should have the latitude to do that. We should be aware if the salary line overall is in jeopardy and we need to take funds from facilities to support salaries, something at that level. And that's when finance discussed it, that's what we were talking about when you roll it up into those 8 top level categories. If you look at the object budget, they bundle into those 8 categories. So what you're talking about is looking at numbers at one layer up from the individual object level.
Those categories that we're given are very broad, and almost will never see connection between those. But we have an object budget right now that has about 20 items that are over budget. This is the budget that we approved. This happens to be the budget that the town approved. We gave them a copy of that budget. So those were the line items. That's the object summary budget. All right, that's the blue sheet that we sent out to the town. That's the one that you said that we were going to send out to the town again. And so that's our responsibility, that object budget, not those 5 or 6 items,
It's 8 items.
or 8 items.
And we change board policy.
I don't think that's what the board policy states.
It is. The policy, I believe that you're.
It says object code. It doesn't say that you're defining 8. Where's
No,
this? Let me.
it's in the
Well, I
policy.
have never seen that in a policy, that it says those 8 items. It says object
Specifically
budget.
says those 8 accounts.
Here we go. To assist the board in carrying out the financial responsibilities, the superintendent of schools shall prepare a monthly, financial statement. The financial statement shall include for each budget area subdivision, amounts budgeted, the amount expended to date, the amount encumbered or obligated, and the encumbered balance, the cash flow report, the monthly financial report, and the student activity report. And then it goes on to talk about over expenditures. So I make a motion that our monthly budget report should consist of the object budget report, and the transfers would correspond to that report.
Can you please restate?
I make a motion that our monthly financial report will be based on the object summary reports. And the transfers would correspond to that report.
You got it again? No second.
I second it.
Second by Joe. Discussion?
Can you explain to us, Jane, what that in a practical way would mean, in practical terms?
Well, if we
For
use
for your
the,
office and,
well, if we use the object report, for instance, this month we received a budget report by program and object. So if we're referring that the reference is that every line item, what Mr. Jacobson I believe is referring to, that if an object is overdrawn by $10,000, he wants to see that item, that object section covered by some other place. Therefore, short of doing it line item by line item, all I'm going to do is, if there's money in an account that has excess, I'm just going to move to the object to down to
Jane, can I ask,
vacancy.
can you help define the difference between an object and a line item?
Well, an object is within a line item. A line item is every account number. The paper that you're utilizing from last year, may I see
I
that?
don't have that one.
Is this the one you're talking about?
Well, don't we have one in front
This is the one you had in the document, in the packet.
So, therefore, that's by object, right? So there's a section there that's overdrawn. You want to see that covered by some other place.
I think what the intent is, of the way I read the policy, is that obviously you're doing your job to point out, hey, we have a shortage of heating oil. We're overdrawn by $10,000. So you bring that to our attention, and then the board, the way the policy, again, how I read it, is that we as a board are supposed to say, okay, so based on your recommendation, Ms. Neal, I'm going to recommend that we take $10,000 from this account and move it to that account, and then the board is all in the loop that we know where the money's going.
Right.
That's my understanding of it. I don't think that we want to see that, I know I don't want to see that you have to come to us and say for every nickel or every dollar. But I think to Rich's point, last year, I keep coming back to this, we had $740,000 of transfers at the end of the year that we really didn't know. Well, we technically knew because we had this report, but we never really discussed it. And these meetings happen so fast that we kind of seem to rush through a lot of this stuff. And to echo Rich is, we owe our townspeople, everybody, that, you know, accountability and transparency, and I don't think we're doing that to our best ability. I know your intent is genuine, but I think, to echo Rich's point, we have a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to our communities to make sure that we fully understand where this money is going, why and it helps us, I think, in the budget process for the next year to understand, you know, why are we $50,000 over, and how do we move these, you know, how do we, and last year, by the way, we never really encumbered until you came on here. I don't think we had a lot of encumbrances. So I definitely see a lot of improvement, but I think that that's my understanding of how I think we want to proceed. I'm only going by what the policy states. So I think we just don't want to see the drill down, but I think we want to definitely be in tune for how much money we're spending. I don't think that's micromanaging. I think, you know, I've read it about 6 times, and I think that's what the policy states. If you're over in a line item, we have to be able to balance that at a monthly meeting.
And I think where the difference is, and Jane, I'll let you finish,
Yeah.
is in the definition of what line items are.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And, you know, in a prior district that I worked in, these budget line items would be 7 categories for what was defined as the line items.
Okay.
And it was done quarterly like the one I did prior to this month.
And it takes a lot of time to do that.
And that takes quite a while to do that.
See, I think
And
sorry, go ahead.
the only reason I gave you the object in the program is because it seems I sense that that's what we wanted to go back to. With the plan, with this quarterly one was going to be done exactly that, quarterly. There'd be another one in May, and then I would do those transfers, recommend those transfers. I mean, the board's not going to be able to say, let's move money from here to here. I'm going to have to recommend that. No different than, you know, you approved the transfer for those tennis court nets, and we moved it.
And as of last month's meeting, we had a projected balance of $195,000, $194,000. There were 2 line items that were projected to be over expense, but you were waiting to get some more financial detail in to offset some of those, so that we wouldn't be jumping the shark and trying to do transfers too early.
Well, those numbers have decreased, so it's not 100.
Is quarterly more advantageous because you would then have a better idea and more information, to Danny's point?
Well, quarterly, it's because it's a lot of work. So to try to do it every month, by the time, you know, from the time frame of, you know, closing out the month and trying to get it ready for the board packet, you know, that's pretty much all you're trying to do. This budget status by object, now for instance, object 123, which is coaches, that account, I wouldn't be recommending to move money in there because with the deficit of $17,000, because we're still waiting for pay-to-play money to come in. You don't know that because you don't see it on here. This report that was done quarterly, that I had done 2 board meetings ago, I put other numbers into that spreadsheet that I knew was going to happen. This is right off the system. I can't add things to this and say this is where I think we're going to end up. So if you really look at the bottom line here, it shows here we have $4 million balance. We don't have a $4 million balance because this doesn't have payroll encumbered in it. So it's, how do you want to look at it? It's, you know, transferring monies here, you know.
But the policy states quarterly transfer. That's when you're going to present it to us on a quarterly basis to transfer, right?
Right, because I'm going by this. That's why I'm going by those 7 categories.
Can you read off those?
Sure. Salaries, benefits, purchase services, tuition, as tuition in-state and tuition other, supplies, property, and then other, category called within those salaries, it contains the objects 100 through 161. In the employee benefits, it contains objects 200 through 295, defined objects. So when I created the one 2 months ago, it gave me a chance to not only use the numbers off the system, but then also say, what else do I think I'm going to spend? What do I know I'm going to spend? What do I think I'm going to spend? And also, what do I project bringing in? Pay for play, community use of buildings, excess costs, those type of things. I can't do that with this report because I'm not going to go dummying up the numbers on the system.
But some, I've seen reports where they put definitions afterwards, Hebron does that, definitions of the overages that are acceptable and then transfers. With those 7 categories, we're not really tracking, 6 of those categories, we have almost no say in the budget. We spent how many hours arguing over one category of textbooks? I'm not comfortable that we argue textbooks in, textbooks out, and then give free rein without us knowing that you're moving money from textbooks to fuel oil or different things, like, field maintenance to...
Well, I think the decision has to be made. Do you want me to?
I'm sorry, what document are you referring to there?
Board policy.
The board policy is
Board
also
policy.
3165.
3165.
And I get it. What the intent of the conversation in Finance Subcommittee was trying to get to is the balance between the motion as you presented it and Joe's comment. Because the motion as you presented it would literally have us, as soon as a line went to 101%, we would be sitting here as a board talking about where you're going to come up with $2.67 to cover that item. We would literally be talking about dozens of line items at every board meeting that we
Could all be
did
number
this.
100.
Right, that could all be in object 100.
But you don't want to go that fine in detail.
So where's the cutoff, is the
Well,
question. Where is it acceptable and not acceptable is what we're trying to get to.
Right. I see us get a report with a list of items that this is where I'm recommending all the transfers, and it really leaves minimal discussion, because we know you're on top of it. The public knows we're on top of it.
So let me ask this, Jane. You're going to prepare, the plan is, in accordance with policy, we're scheduled to discuss the next quarterly summary. You'd be talking about those 8 categories as defined in policy, but within that, you're going to be making recommendations to us within those categories, right? You're going to say, here's the logic, I'm going to move this from this item to this item within that category to make this work,
I'm
right?
going to tell you where I'm transferring the money from.
So the discussion happens, it's just we're talking about it within the context of a larger bucket.
But are we going to be able to ask questions? Like, if you're moving money, I have an example for grounds on the program budget. For, when am I ever going to be able to ask my question? We're over $102,711 in grounds. I'm going to get that. How did we get
But
to
you're
that?
looking at it a different way now. That's the problem. We're looking at program, you're looking at object. Somebody has to.
But I have to be, as a board member, I have to be able to ask that question at some point in time. How did we get to $102,000 over? I have to know that.
You can
because
ask that question at any time.
Right.
You can send her an email and say, why are we $102,000? Or when the reports come out, like today, and you see it, you can ask, why are we $102,000? What was spent on that line?
And more
We shouldn't
specifically,
be over that.
Yeah.
That's not true.
no.
That's not true. If you're giving me $80,000 to spend on oil, what do you want us to do? Not heat the buildings when we run out of money? That's not true. You hired me to monitor the budget. You hired me to monitor the overall budget. If you want to control it by line item or by program, it's not possible. You just spent $48,000 on a tennis court net. What are you going to do if that comes in at 49? I'm not going to buy it.
Well, we approved, to your example, I mean, it's actually more than that, but
All right.
I understand. I
You
understand.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think what I guess, to back up a little bit, I don't think there's ever been, I think why we have some challenge here is that it's not been, defined enough to a certain degree, or the questions haven't been properly answered. I mean, I think we just want to know, once we get to a level of comfort, that the numbers that, like I said, I'm going to go back to this transfer last year, which I completely,
And so did the entire board. So
Right.
rather
We
than
all-
rehashing that, we all agree that what happened last year was not acceptable.
But
And I
the-
think that's what you always think,
That's what it's always, that's what it's always done.
that isn't the proper
Crazy.
way.
With-
That doesn't show me that a board is in tune with its finances.
Right. And you also have to recognize that the dynamics of this board has changed in the last 2 years. And we've had considerable turnover at the position, 2 positions, which ran out of the door because of the demands from the board of reports and information and phone calls and requests.
Right.
So to that, let's circle back for a second. My recommendation is going to be either we table this motion or we set it aside for a while and let's go next month and see Jane's work go through, see the quarterly report on the line items with the recommended transfers. So,
And I can give you another example. This object, the printout, you received this by object. All right? That was in your board packet. So you have an object, we'll use, for example, object, we'll use coaches again, 123. You're seeing a $17,000 deficit. I have all the detail here. I already bring it down. I know, pay to play. Now, hopefully, we're gonna bring in enough money to cover that.
Well,
All right.
why couldn't you share that with the board on a quarterly basis?
I can show you that with the board on a monthly basis. There's your object total list.
Right, well,
But I'm not gonna do the transfers because I can't transfer money that I don't haven't brought in.
right, in that case, you justified the overage.
Um,
But fuel oil is over, so you know
Right.
that's over.
Right. Let's see. I most certainly can share with you, homebound tutors is 5698 in a deficit. It's in a deficit because we've used more money in tutors. Where are we gonna get the money? I don't know. But it's in a deficit. I'm not just gonna move money.
Right, what I'm hoping we do know where we're gonna get the money at this point.
You have an overall balance in the budget.
But hopefully that money already targeted to something else.
Well, we have a budget freeze on. That's why we have a budget freeze on. Because we have money in other programs that isn't being spent.
So why don't we move the money now?
any further
The
discussion?
problem is,
I think it's,
No, because
We have time, this is why it's on the agenda.
I understand,
All right.
but there's other members who want to speak. So let someone else speak.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, for one, so come August, we're still gonna transfer between all the little accounts and true those up, or in August, we're just gonna balance up the 8 line items?
We're gonna balance up, we're probably gonna balance up the 8 line items. It's not necessary for an account that's $641 in a negative to move money in there. You don't have the personnel to take care of all these accounts.
Well, I can agree with
The
you.
overall
Yeah.
goal is to end the year not in deficit,
Yep.
to manage the budget.
Right. And we've done
Yeah.
that, but, I agree it's onerous if you went through all those 50 or 75 items and tried to true those up every 2 or 3 months, but, I think we do want a better status of where the budget is every quarter than we've been getting. Even 4 or 5 years ago, I said something, and, people, do you really understand that thing we're getting every month? And then you just kind of like, actually, I think there was pretty much silence.
Anybody else
Yep.
have comments on this? I'm sorry, Jane, go ahead.
I mean, you can have whatever report you want. You have the smaller report. I have the larger report that is my backup to the board report. Yeah, if you want a 23-page object by object, you can have that. I have a problem, it's printed out. When I print this because I need to be able to answer your questions. Yeah.
I'm comfortable with quarterly reports and what you suggested, which was to see how the first one goes, and if we feel we need more information, we can kind of tailor it from there.
So,
And I don't know if it would help, maybe at some point we might set a limit of an amount that beyond which we might want to be appraised of exactly what it is for, like 5,000 or whatever. We wouldn't want to know about the $100 ones, but we might want at some point make a decision that way. I don't know if that would be workable or not within the framework of it.
Well, I think neither, you do need a board policy for a dollar amount transfer.
I think there's language in there is.
It's a percentage of a budget.
Percentage.
But that's for the superintendent, it's 1%.
On an emergency basis.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
still.
Yeah, there's no other defined relative to board line item transfers.
Still has to be approved by the board
Yeah.
afterwards.
You most certainly can have a,
You can have a policy that says that all all deficits of X dollar amount must be reviewed by the board and appropriate transfers made.
yeah, and they're not necessarily deficits. You could be moving
Right.
$48,000 from one place to another. You approved that. Yeah.
So all line item transfers above a
Right.
certain dollar
Right.
threshold, have to be the
So in May, any transfers that you'll be recommending to us will
You're
include those that
you need to approve.
need to approve, but would include any that you're saying that may not be deficit related, but need to be covered by expense, and others may be covered
Right.
for deficits
Right.
within those 8 accounts.
With the 8 accounts, the transfers that we did last year, we would not have to have done, because they would not show up as transfers. So I'm definitely not comfortable with that.
Any further discussion?
I would ask, is it possible, because I have seen it on the Hebron board, elementary board, with notes with the transfers, as an explanation, saying, okay, grounds, and the quarterly report, that say, okay, why we're over.
Oh, sure, I'm not going to do a transfer and just say I'm transferring for the heck of
Would be
it. You know,
listed.
I'm going to give you a general reason why I'm transferring the money.
Yeah, so what I anticipate, the way I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jane, the report that you gave us says 8.3C last month, which was the budget balances per board policy 3165. There will be a summary of that, and then you'll have a list specifically of which movements and why behind each that you're going to be recommending to us.
Right.
But-
The Hebron one is the reason, the Hebron one that you passed out at the beginning of when I first came here was why I did the one, because that's what Hebron does. Hebron's using this policy. You can tell by looking at it that they're using the
We'll
policy.
use the object budget for transfers. With these 8 items, we wouldn't have to ever do any, mostly not do any transfers.
Any further discussion on this?
Yes.
Unless you have something to Rich on this one.
Let's not go down that path.
Well, point of order, we all had a chance to speak on something. We don't have, like Joe says, it's a chance for discussion, but we don't have to have endless discussion.
That's correct. Any further discussion on this from anybody who hasn't changed, or hasn't spoken, or has something new to say about it?
I have one new thing to say, is we are trying to get,
Chance to speak.
All right, so that's something new. Go ahead.
we are trying to get transparency. There's a number of public that accuse us of transferring, actually not us, they accuse the superintendent of transferring money left and right. And by making it visible to both us and to them, we can help fend that off.
Thank you, Rich. Any further discussion on this from anybody? If not, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye. And all those opposed?
Could you restate the motion, please?
Kathy, could you restate the motion?
Motion made by Rich Jacobson and seconded by Joseph O'Connor that the monthly budget report be based on the object summary report and the transfers would correspond to that report.
I'll recall the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Any abstentions? 1, abstentions. So 4-1, motion passes.
Motion fails.
Good.
Get more no's.
You had 2 yeses, you had 4 noes.
Oh, it was 4 no, I'm sorry, motion failed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Send you back to Tom Corbett.
Umbrellas breaking glass. Okay, that brings us to item 8.7, discussion and possible action, setting graduation date and closure of 8.7. Bob?
I just recommend that we do 18th.
So make a motion that we accept the superintendent's recommendation of setting the graduation date for June 18, 2015, as noted in enclosure 8.7.
Okay, second by Ken. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? There's not going to be any tricks to that. I heard Weathersfield was into the news, or one of the school districts, because they were voting on the date of graduation.
No, see, state statute says we can set it after April 1st. That's why we're doing it at this.
No, understood, but there's something that happened over there. I don't know what it was, but there were an awful lot of people mad at the board that night. I don't know what was going
They
on.
changed it from a Saturday, or from a Friday to a Saturday.
Saturday, right, yeah.
And they wanted, then they had to move it back to a Friday because
Oh.
that was when they were having their graduation party.
Yes,
Well,
project
all
graduation,
the-
project graduation.
And so,
Created a mess.
so they're hoping it doesn't rain because the graduation is outside.
Okay. Brings to item 8.8, discussion and possible action regarding the 2015-16 school calendar.
Make a motion we approve the 2015-16 school calendar as included in enclosure 8.8.
And this motion made by Kevin, is there a second? Second by Rich. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Brings us to 8.9, discussion and possible action regarding the teacher evaluation plan. 8.9, that's a lot. So,
Make a motion that the board accept the recommended teacher evaluation plan as included in enclosure 8.9.
okay. Is there a second? Motion made by Kevin. Second by Rich. Any discussion?
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions. So, Rich, you said program did discuss the evaluation instrument. Program is comfortable with the instrument as written?
Yep.
Okay.
Till the next one.
Till the next revision, because Bob, this is what, revision 3 required by the state?
If you notice, if you look at.
Is that version 4?
We just listed the iterations of this thing to keep our own record straight. And maybe somebody in the state will see that the number of iterations and have less and less.
Right, because each time we've done this, right, we've adopted it or accepted it, it's been turned over to the state, the state's made changes, it's come back, so we've never gotten to a final approved document because the state's never gotten to a final.
No, the state has approved each iteration.
Okay.
But they've changed the things that they want in the iteration, so we've had to go back and adjust it.
Got it.
I will say that the change that we made relative to intensive assistance is a district initiated change. And when we submit to the state, that's the only part we have to submit to the state because it's district initiated and it doesn't follow the C model playbook.
Got it.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions on that? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Brings us to item 9.
When I presented my report, I had one additional item I'd like to add on, just bring the board up to speed on health insurance.
Under which item? Under,
It would be the utility administration.
oh,
I'm sorry, I forgot.
go ahead.
We received the final numbers from Canada, and we were projecting a 9.97% increase. The increase has been reduced to 7.5%. We have not had an opportunity to calculate that and to determine the exact amount of savings, but we're at a point where we've approved a number to go to referendum in the district meeting. It would be difficult to change that just because the date this came in and the calendar was in place for the referendum. I wanted to make you aware of the change in health insurance.
Brings us to, we did item 9, right?
We were just about to, but yeah, it's just point out information.
You made a motion, right, Kevin?
There is no motion, it's just
Okay,
informational
just the
items.
reports, okay, just the information items for 9.1A, high school, middle school calendar events, and 9.1B, high school, middle school use of building. which brings us to item number 10, public comments. Anyone like to address the board at this time? Hearing none, Mr. Shea. Oh, yep.
Just a real quick comment. I'm going to pay closer attention to the minutes. Apparently, my wife's got a whole secret life.
Thanks for that. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, I would also agree with Joe's comment about the AEDs. I believe Andover Elementary School, which is much, much smaller than the school, has 3. And I think 3 is totally inadequate. I would say 3 on each floor in each school wouldn't be too many. When you need them quick, and you need it within minutes. 3 is not. I mean, just the amount of time you need to get that thing on analyzing, you wouldn't make it here. You wouldn't make it at all.
Okay. Anyone else? Hearing none, that brings us to item number 11. I need a motion for the purposes of discussion and possible action regarding the legal matter, superintendent's contract negotiations, and discussion of security. And I'd like to ask the board to invite the superintendent and, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Alex Vocio.
I'm sorry?
Alex Vocio.
Alex Vocio to be included in the session, a part of the executive session. So,
Move to go into executive session for those purposes stated.
okay, motion made by Kevin, is there a second? Okay, Ken, second, so any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, going into executive session, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we're in executive session. I'd like to take a 5-minute recess so we can wrap up.